All right, what's going on, everybody? Jesse Montano back for another episode of This Is Fun. I'm a day late. It's my fault. We were in Vegas. I was out there for a day longer than Blake. Blake had all the video gear, and he was like, "Do you need anything? Like, is there any reason I shouldn't take everything?" I was like, "No, take it all." And I suddenly found myself needing to record this part of the podcast, and I was in Vegas and I had no equipment, so I apologize. I'm a day behind, but This Is Fun, episode 7. Thank you guys so much for coming back every week. I've had a ton of fun doing this. We've had some great guests on. We got another great guest today. And I'm having a blast doing it. And that's the point of all of this. So thank you guys all so much. We're in the best sports season of the year right now. We're in the middle of it. It's currently happening. You got baseball just started a couple weeks ago. NHL regular season wraps tonight. NBA regular season is done. We are just a couple of days away from the playoffs starting for them. You got the NFL draft in a week. March Madness just wrapped up. You had the Masters this past weekend. End of last week. I don't remember what the days are, but it's just it seems like every day you turn on the TV, there's something awesome going on. U.S. and Canada women's played the gold medal game for the Women's World Championships for hockey just a couple days ago. Again, went to overtime. So just all kinds of really fun stuff happening right now in the world of sports, and it sucks because I know that conversely means that we're just like 2 months away from the real dead sports season of the year, but that's okay. We're in it right now, and it's really fun. It's really exciting. You got some good matchups in the NBA here locally. The Denver Nuggets are going to get another crack at the LA Lakers after the Nuggets swept them last year en route to their first NBA championship. Should be plenty of drama there. And look, it does just feel a little bit like it's the Nuggets have beat the Lakers 8 times in a row going back to last season if you include the playoffs. And like just where the LA Lakers are at with LeBron James, Anthony Davis getting older, obviously still elite players. I was actually just talking to Mark Chernyshov, our great videographer. He's from Russia. I was talking to him about Alex Ovechkin. He's like, man, it's crazy how good Ovechkin is, but I look at where they are in the standings and they're not very good. And I told him, I was like, well, he's not a big hockey guy. He's getting into it more. But I told him, I was like, well, Ovechkin's right near the end of his career. So turn the clock back, anywhere from 5 to 10 years, you can kind of pick. I said, and they were really, really good, winning Stanley Cups, I believe exactly 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. Winning Stanley Cups right at the top of the league, top of their division every single year. He's scoring 50, 60 goals. So I was like, yeah, they're not quite the team they were, but still very good players, even if they are near the end of their career. It's kind of the same thing with the LA Lakers. Look, I'm not around the NBA every day. I consume a lot of sports. I watch a lot of sports. But from my perspective, that's a little bit of what you're seeing right now with the Denver Nuggets and the LA Lakers in this particular kind of rivalry playoff matchup now a couple years in a row. For years and years and years and years and years, the LA Lakers were like a very real point of misery for Denver Nuggets fans. Just seemed like every year that was where the season came to an end. Couldn't never beat them. Kind of similar feeling to the Broncos and Chiefs right now. But it just feels like for the Nuggets that script has flipped. And now suddenly it's the Nuggets who are racing to see how many championships they can collect with this core. And it's the LA Lakers who are the lower seed going on the road just trying to stay with it. So it's a crazy fun, it's a crazy time to be in Denver, Denver sports. If you're a Nuggets fan, it's super fun because you were on the receiving end of this for decades. And so, where I was going with all this was that's a great matchup. In the NHL with just, not having to look very far, just staying purely in the Western Conference, I think Avs Jets, I think that's going to be a great, great matchup. Maybe the closest series of any of the first round series. You got, Vegas either going head-to-head with Edmonton or Dallas. Either way, that is going to be at least one really good team gone in the first round. Same with Colorado, Winnipeg. Then if you go out east, you got the Battle of Florida, Tampa, and the Florida Panthers. You've got Toronto and Boston. Drama all over the place. I absolutely love it. Last thing, I guess it's not the last thing. With the regular season ending for the NHL, Alex Ovechkin does officially finish the season 31 goals, putting him 41 shy of Wayne Gretzky's record. He had a down year. No doubt about it. Was really slow getting started. Scored at a really high clip in the back half. We are on record watch, folks. Starting with regular season game 1 next year, we are on record watch for Alex Ovechkin. 41 for him next year is absolutely not out of the question. 42 to break the record. You know he's going to be focused on that. This summer with his training and the way that he's preparing for next year, you know he's going to be painfully aware of exactly where he's at. So 41 shy for Alex Ovechkin. Sticking with hockey, sticking with Colorado, not the NHL. The Denver Pioneers, 10th national championship title. My guest this week was actually in Minnesota for that national championship. But they are officially alone at the top. The most national championships for a Division I ice hockey program. DU sits alone at the top. The only reason I really wanted to bring this up, and we'll kind of be quick here, to me, I talk a little bit about it today in the interview with Corey, and you guys have heard me talk about it before. College athletics, I really struggle to watch them and to enjoy them. One, I watch a lot of, using this as an example, the DU ice hockey national championship. I watch a lot of NHL hockey. I've been around hockey my entire life. I've got friends that have gone on and played Division I, Major Junior, ECHL, two, buddies that I grew up with that have gotten a cup of coffee in the AHL. I just struggle with the speed and pace of college hockey. It's just slow. That being said, I think, it's funny because part of my issue with college sports is that the programs at the top stay at the top because they're the best programs. So why wouldn't your top, the top recruits in the country want to continue to go there? You can attract the best coaches, the best staff, the best players, and it just doesn't really leave a lot of room for the ebb and flow that we see in most pro sports leagues, where you build up, then you fall off, you tear down, you rebuild, you build up, you fall off, you tear down, you rebuild. And there's kind of this, natural flow for most teams. You don't really get that with college. So there's two things that the 10 national championships signify to me. One, absolutely amazing consistency for a program. I mean, I remember when I was young, very little, DU winning, national championships, or at least being highly competitive in almost every year. They went through a small little dip there. Was it 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, where they struggled. I believe they missed the tournament. I believe it was 2 years in a row. But 10 national championships. They win 2 years ago, then right back this year. And again, there's long stretches in between a couple of those national championships, but nothing too crazy. And that is just, that's an unbelievable testament to the people there who put that program together on a yearly basis. The coaching staff, the players, all of that stuff. Great stuff for DU. Congratulations to them. An unbelievable accomplishment, and it's always awesome. Again, as someone who grew up playing hockey in Colorado, I love to see Colorado hockey thrive and be successful. Helps grow the game in such an awesome way. So to see the DU Pioneers continuing to do one of the things that I remember as a young hockey player, really rallying behind, it's just awesome. Brings a smile to my face. Last thing I want to get to, 1 week out from the NFL draft. Not quite exactly 1 week, but the NFL draft is next weekend. And they started media availability today for it. And every year, it somehow blows my mind every year. The spectacle that is the NFL draft, really everything the NFL does, it's all such a show. It's all such a large production. It's sometimes hard to wrap your head around the fact that, for the NHL, even for the NBA, they have marquee events every year that they try to do them up real big. The draft is, of course, one of them. All-Star games, finals, things like that. But, some of you have maybe heard me talk about this before. The NFL understands its product, and it has designed its league in a way that the NFL is an entertainment league first, sports second. And they're very, very good. That's why their athletes are the highest paid. That's why their TV deals are the largest, of any of the major North American sports. And it just blows my mind because, there's availability started today. You had to be somewhere to get availability for the draft. That's still more than a week out. The NHL, and I am not complaining. I am not saying to do this any different. The NHL, you get an availability the day before, with some of your guys, if you coordinate with your local PR and then you get the players right out. But it's nothing like what the NFL does. And it blows me away how it seems like every time the NFL has some type of event, it is the number one event on TV that night. And look, I get that's one of the things that a lot of people don't like. There's times where it turns me off from it, the amount of commercials and fanfare leading up to hey, let's just get the game going. But hey, I saw that today, and it was just another funny reminder for me that, man, the NFL's king. As much as people don't have, I'm a hockey guy, I'm an NHL guy. It sucks. The NFL is king, and stuff like them doing media availability a week before the draft always makes me laugh. I know it's not really much of anything to say about it, but I just always find it crazy, and maybe you do as well. Let's get to my guest this week, Corey Masisak of the Denver Post. Been around the NHL for a long time, been around sports even longer, has really been someone that I have really enjoyed getting to know this year, and he's become a little bit of my NHL tour guide, as he's been pretty much all over the place, and helping me kind of figure out where we're going as Guerilla Sports hit 41 NHL cities 41 road trips this year, 32 NHL cities. Corey has definitely helped me get around. So he's been around. He's the mayor of the Rust Belt, Corey Masisak. Enjoy. My next guest has become my go-to travel guide around the NHL, and truthfully, this is the second time my next guest has been my next guest because I messed it up last time. Corey Masisak from the Denver Post, thanks for coming back. So.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
And see, I didn't even mess it up the first time. I enjoyed our conversation so much I had to have you back again. Yeah. As you remember, we start this the same every time. Toilet paper, does it go over or under?
Oh, no. I forget what I said last time. That's a great start. It's over.
You said that you
got... Oh, yeah, that's right. I wasn't under, moved in with somebody else, made it very clear that it wasn't over. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
He was converted. So converted to the correct answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a fun, actually it wasn't a fun week there for a bit in Avs land, but this is a fun time of year, man. These games that we're getting, they're fun to go to. I'm not you get through that kind of slog of the season. It's been fun.
Yeah, I think. Even it was funny before the home game against Minnesota. It was welcome to the last inconsequential game of the year.
Yeah.
Kind of and that's why I kind of went into it thinking that way. And then it turned out to be an incredibly consequential game just for the lore of Nathan McKinnon and just the way that they, it felt kind of felt like the Palace walls were crumbling a little bit after at the end of the way the first period ended. And then 3 hours later, it was oh yeah, do you remember when things were falling apart?
It didn't feel great.
It's been, this is my first full season where I think I'm going to end up doing 30 road games. It's my first one of those in a while. So, a few weeks ago I was kind of feeling that. And now even this morning, someone asked me how are you handling all this? And I'm honestly, it's playoff time. And that mode in my brain has locked in, and I've stopped worrying about being tired. So
yeah. Like you said, it definitely did switch. I went through a nice stretch there over the last month where it's just get me to the games that matter. Get me to the games that matter. And to your point, they're all, you got Winnipeg, then you got Vegas, then you got Edmonton to end the season. They're all going to be for something. I've thought a lot about what you and I were talking about on the road of, boy, it would have been fun to see them play Edmonton 2 times in a row because that last game really was a dud for several reasons.
Yeah.
Okay,
good.
Well, no, I was going to say it's a great commissioner for a day type thing.
Right. Yeah. So Jesse's talking about the what at the Athletic they called it the Taves schedule because Jonathan Taves, I think it was Mark Lazarus had talked to Jonathan Taves about it, and Jonathan Taves is like, he's big on the environment, and then he was also like big on like just the idea of players getting more sleep, which is such a novel concept, right? And so like, yeah, the idea that like we sort of had a little bit of it right coming out of COVID, where instead of going to Edmonton once in February and once in April, it would be like you just go play those games like twice in either 2 days or 3 days even. Like, so, and then you just kind of do that as much as you can over the course of the season, saves on travel. People get better. I mean, playing in Minnesota and then playing in Edmonton less than 24 hours later is just, it makes for bad hockey.
Right. Well, and all kinds of people are like, well, they travel really, private planes and nice hotels. It's like, yeah, doesn't matter. Like, that's still brutal travel. But yeah, so like we were saying, it's exciting to get going here. I gave Corey a ton of credit last time. I've had a lot of people talk to me. We've been very fortunate here at Guerilla Sports to travel a lot this year. Corey has been there for pretty much every single thing, and people do not give him enough credit that he deserves for going through the grind as well. All right, let's get into this a little bit.
Yep.
I know this about you now, and it was very shocking to me when we last talked. Your first writing gig was in 6th grade.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, I started writing. I grew up in a very small town. We had a once a week newspaper, and actually it was like the paper itself was in their office was like one town over, so it wasn't even technically my town. But and they did like multiple weekly papers. So anyway, basically I would write not even that much, just a handful of paragraphs probably about like the 7th grade basketball team or the 8th grade football team.
I love that.
When I was in 6th grade, and I started doing it, or I kept doing it, I guess, as I started playing, which was very weird. It was very hard to like write about your side.
Masisak, another huge game.
Well, that was like my mom would get mad at me because I'd be like the second leading scorer on the team, and I would like not mention myself.
Yeah.
Right? It just felt weird. So and then it kind of grew from there. Like in high school, I didn't play football in high school, so I would like go to various high school football games, and not like a full time like writer would, but just go to my high school's football game on Friday night, go home, write a story about it, and then my mom would drive me over to the paper's office, and we would we would literally print it out on my computer at home, and then slide it under the door at the office in the morning, and then someone would come in and they'd pick it up and go back into their computer and type it in, and the story would appear in the paper.
That's amazing. I love that was the process for like getting it from your screen to them was just like, put it under the door and we'll.
Yeah, I don't know. Email. Well, I guess that might have been slightly before email. Not that I'm not super old, but I'm old enough to remember when computers weren't connected to the internet.
Yeah. Email existed, it just wasn't in every house. All right, so that is easily, for people that I've talked to, the youngest that someone has known. Like, this is kind of what. Did you start having like I want to cover, like, not I want to cover sports, like I want to cover this sport? Like, did you have that? Because you're such a sports guy. Like, I feel like you and I have had conversations about.
Nerd, that would have been fine.
But so to me, it almost seems natural that you'd be like, no, I just wanted to cover sports. But did you have like I was this kind of guy?
Well, not really. I mean, like, so I went to the University of Maryland, and partially I went there because, like, I applied to a bunch of different schools, and I was pretty sure that I was not going to go to a smaller school, like one for like Ohio University has a really good journalism program.
Yeah.
But I was kind of fixated on, ACC or Big Ten, just some place that had like the full, like college sports fan experience, right? So, probably like honestly coming out of college, everything was just college in my world. Like I covered college football, college basketball, college baseball, and so I probably thought that's what I was going to do. But I never was like, oh, I want to cover the NFL or I want to cover the NHL or any of that until later.
You just kind of let it take you where it went.
Yeah.
All right, we talked about this last time, but March Madness has ended and it's only fueled you're a big college sports guy. Mm-hmm. March Madness, I feel like, is the biggest lie in sports, that it's like got all this drama, and we ended up with 4 1 seeds in the national championship games.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, I feel like by the end, it's like, oh yeah, it's all the schools that should have been there anyways, and all the drama fades away after the round of 32.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, at least on the men's side for sure, they've had some weird, like,
Final
number
four
6
runs.
seed winning or number 11 seed making it or whatever.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Honestly, for me, like, I watched way more of the women's games this year than the men's games. Like, it's kind of been coming. I think I might have mentioned this on Twitter. Like, even if you go back like before the pandemic, like for a long time, women's basketball it's Connecticut and Tennessee and everybody else, and like even like 2017, 2018, 2019, I think kind of like when Sabrina Ionescu went through Oregon, that was sort of like she was like kind of the Caitlin Clark before, like on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Like Sabrina kind of got like more casual people like me into it, and it was you'd watch these Final Four games and you're like, wow, like this is not like one Goliath trying in 3 Davids trying to beat Connecticut. It was like these games were great. They're like, they're just so, and I think that's kind of played out this year too. I mean, obviously Caitlin Clark was the thing and kind of brought everybody together. But once everybody was in the boat, it was like, hey, these games are really good. Like these teams are really good.
And you had, it felt like, again, for me, someone who's a casual at best college basketball fan, like you said, obviously Caitlin Clark and everything with Iowa, that's obviously. But then like all the drama with LSU and Angel Reese going back to last year and in the ring and the shit talking all that stuff. And then,
by the way, I would love to see, and I know hockey players never do this, and certainly Nathan McKinnon would never do this. But to me, like the way some of the games that they play against teams and some like that when they were coming back against Vancouver, or any of the or even that game in Toronto.
Yes,
like, man, could you imagine if a player like McKinnon or McCarr or somebody like did that? like we've got one of these and you don't, and here's why. Like, oh my God, it would break hockey Twitter.
Oh,
but like,
dude.
But even like and I mean, it was a huge deal, and it was a huge deal when Steph Curry did it at the end of their run. Angel Reese did it last year to Caitlin Clark. But yeah, just anyway.
And then you've got, and this one I actually it bummed me out when I found more context to it. The 38-0, like South Carolina, that's unbelievable. But 9 other teams had done it.
Yeah, well, most of them were Connecticut. Like, right, like that's. I mean, I think Connecticut did it like 5 or 6 times. But, I mean, that's the crazy part of. I thought it was really fascinating. Like, I'm not a huge gambling person, but I have friends who are very much huge gambling people.
Yeah.
And I had told a couple of them like South Carolina -6.5 in that game was like it felt like such easy money because what I know about gambling is more like from because I listen to sports podcasts, like how people cover it. And so like if you listen to how the sharps in Vegas work, like they basically let all of America bet on Caitlin Clark. And most of the people that bet on Caitlin Clark wouldn't even know any of the players on South Carolina. Right. But like, oh, by the way, they were 37-0 and were basically like a Terminator.
Yeah.
And so like even though I was watching the game, and even when it was like 10-0, 13-2, I'm like, well, okay, maybe. Yeah. And then as soon as South Carolina made their first run, I was like, yeah, no, they're gonna win this game by 10 points.
And Iowa made it interesting. They hit those back-to-back threes, and then I think they had another score in the paint or something like that. They like got it to within 4 or 5 or something like that. But I mean, it got there. There was a timeout, and then the margins. I learned with Vegas to never like that. Those guys know what the hell they're talking about. Right. When Val Nichushkin and you had to go through different books. It wasn't like a mainline or a mainstream line. But when he had first signed with the Avs, there was a line that was set at 93.5. How many games would Val Nichushkin go between NHL goals? He scored a goal in his 93rd game.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I was like, okay, all right, you guys, either you have wizards working there or you're really good at what you're doing here.
The hockey part of the betting stuff it's in a really, I think it's in kind of a weird space. Yeah. I don't know. I like even going back to when I was covering the Devils, which is 2 jobs ago, or well, 1 job, 2 teams. Like you get tweets after the game like, hey, Jack Hughes, that shot from the blue line, they didn't count it as a shot, and his over under was 2.5, and that was his 3rd shot, and I lost a bunch of money. And like, I mean, my personal reaction to that is, why are you betting on shots on goal in a sport and a league where, like as we've talked about this year a lot, like the shots on goal change during the intermissions after the games are over. Like that is, I'm someone who like needs a little bit more control over my over my game. I mean, I've like wagered on college football games, and then been told by my friends who cover college football why, as somebody who wants like control, I think I know a lot about college football, so I bet on it. But like, why am I betting on 19 and 20-year-old kids? You know, like, right? Like that's the other part of it is like, you think you got something, and then you will look up in the third quarter, and the team that you were supposed to win is down by 14.
Right. I did. I learned this year I will not be betting on shots on goal anymore.
I don't think I ever would, to be honest.
Yeah, after hearing all that. All right, so you cover hockey. You're around hockey a lot. You're a big hockey fan. What's your favorite sport, like casually, that you just enjoy to turn on more than anything else?
Yeah, that's changed a lot. Like it used to be. I mean, my first love was baseball forever. I still, I still get excited. I'm pretty excited about these guys, the way they've started. Of course, everybody who roots for the Pirates we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. But, so it was baseball for a long time. I got really frustrated with baseball. I think just like a lot of fans, like the pace of play, the actual like sport wasn't as much fun to watch. And then they've fixed that. Like there is,
it's great now.
It's so much better. But I mean, college football has, like, just the way the season works. I watch a ton of college football right before hockey starts.
Yeah.
It almost kind of like helps me get into like you kind of in the off season, and I think I'll feel that more this year too. If the Avalanche go on a long run, like you just got to get away from it. Like
totally.
I could literally go to the middle of nowhere in Northeast Ohio for like 3 weeks and just
nice.
I don't watch any sports. I'm not like check my phone to make sure like see if the Pirates are losing or not. But like I won't watch anything for like a few weeks, and I might play some golf. That's about it. That's about it, right? Yeah. But then like college football camps and like the week one of the college football season is really like it's sports time again, right?
Yeah.
So that's but even in recent years, like I've gotten really into, like probably the other than the Pirates, the only other team that I really like root for, like yesterday I was living and dying with Arsenal.
Oh, okay.
Playing Bayern Munich in the Champions League. So like that year, the English Premier League. And then also I really got into Formula One too.
It's just a big cronky guy, huh?
Big, yeah. That was weird. That was like whenever maybe the 3 hours after I was like, oh, I'm going to get this job. I was like, oh, I'm going to cover one of Stan's teams now. Like, and you and I have talked about the relationship that Avs fans have with the Cronkies, and like I go way back because like they've owned Arsenal for as long. I really got into soccer in like 2010.
Oh, okay.
So like right around the 2010 World Cup. So and they've owned Arsenal the whole time.
Yep.
And the relationship that Arsenal fans have had with the Kroenke family is very different now than it was even 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Really?
And honestly,
better or worse?
Better.
Oh, okay.
Better. Like I think also some of that is just tied directly to the fact that they got the right manager and they have a really good team now, and all is well. But
they're good.
So
yeah, that's funny. I did not know you were a football guy.
Yeah, football. Yeah, right.
Football guy.
I don't. I mean, I. It's mostly just that though. Like I kind of struggle to watch some of the lower tier
even
stuff.
MLS stuff over here is yeah. You covered college football for like a year, 2 years.
Yeah,
kind of briefly.
Right. I like
that's pretty fun.
Yeah, it can be. My first job out of college was covering Navy's football team, like the Naval Academy, which was a lot of fun. They were very good. I got to go to some fun places. And then, I had like a kind of like a sabbatical from hockey where for basically like 2 football seasons, I worked for a college football website.
Nice. Okay. I just, because that to me is the part that is so awesome about college athletics is, I think what you were saying, like the atmosphere around, the air around all of it, less so than like, for me, pros, like what happens on the playing surface is always going to be way better in the pros. Yeah. But the air, the energy, and just like there's 100-plus-year-old rivalries that are just like baked into that stuff. So I imagine being around that's fun.
I mean, the only thing that compares for me to like a great Stanley Cup playoff crowd is like a great college football. There's also some great I went to Maryland. Like I got to back when they were in the ACC. I covered a couple of games at like Cameron Indoor Stadium, like when Maryland Duke was a huge thing. And like they're like the best college basketball crowds are very much like that type of atmosphere. But really just like, there's so many great. Like I went this year. The first kind of college football game I went to after I moved to Denver was I went to Wyoming. A Wyoming Fresno State game, and it was just just that experience of like being around the Wyoming fans and like they treated Fresno State like they were USC. They're like all these city boys came up the mountain and they're in for it. And I'm like, Fresno's like not. They're not the. I mean, Fresno has been kind of like the USC of that conference for a long time.
Yeah,
but not. But anyway, yeah, there was just that whole experience was great. It's amazing. Like I've gone to a couple Colorado School of Mines games. Like their crowds are great.
Stadium.
Like beautiful stadium. It's just.
Well, when you were here last time, we talked about, again, this is more of a representation of like college athletics. Maryland and I think it was Hopkins lacrosse, like electric atmospheres for an outdoor lacrosse game, which normally doesn't get any.
Right. The very first, like I had never seen lacrosse before on TV even.
Yeah.
I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. There was no lacrosse in Western Pennsylvania. There is now, but there wasn't then. I went on my like visit to Maryland and I saw like just guys on the lawn like throwing the ball back and forth to each other, and I'm like, where are their baseball gloves? What is this? What is this? I don't know. And then so that was my level of knowledge of lacrosse. So I got to Maryland, and then over the course of, I think my freshman year, I would have been covering the softball team, but I kind of caught the vibe of like, oh man, this is like a lacrosse school. People were like, yeah. And so the first game that I got to go to, I went and wrote a sidebar about like not the game story, the secondary story for Maryland Johns Hopkins at the football stadium, and I was just like, this is amazing. Is this what it's like? And then people were like, no, this is not what it's like all the time. Like it's fun, but like that, again, it's like it's the Duke North Carolina of men's lacrosse. Like it's the longest standing, biggest rivalry,
And that is the part that I do find awesome about college sports, is that you have stuff like that in this, not weird secondary sport, but not one of the major, power sports. There's this great deep rivalry. So you've done all that. You've covered Alex Ovechkin, Erik Karlsson, now Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. We talked last time about who the most interesting people are that you've covered, and I'm sure all of those guys fall into that somewhere. But you and I have talked multiple times, not just on that podcast last time, about Alexander Semin. And since you and I have talked, I've actually gone and just rewatched more Alexander Semin stuff. What was it like to be around a player like that who, like, what a weird career. It looked like he was going to be this, like, long time outside shot at a Hall of Fame, like, caliber player, and then he just kind of went away.
Yeah. It's funny that in between the last time even at the game that McKinnon had the other night, it was like, I'm thinking about this, so my first full season covering an NHL team was 2007, 2008, the Capitals. They start out the year in last place at Thanksgiving. They fire the coach. Bruce Boudreau comes in. They make the run all the way back to Alex Ovechkin had 65 goals and 112 points that year. And that was unlike anything anybody had seen since 1996. And now I'm like 51 goals and 137 points. I'm just like, holy cow. Like, I mean, part of this is like, I mean, you could say, look, I've had to move around a lot. I've had a weird career, but I've also been extremely blessed to literally cover Alex. I mean, not just the Alex Ovechkin, but like the Ovechkin Crosby thing.
Totally.
Just being in the middle of it for so long. And then, even in New Jersey, I caught the tail end of Taylor Hall's MVP season, and then watching Jack Hughes kind of go from become a superstar essentially, and then
when Jack Hughes signed the extension that he's currently on, like that was heavily scrutinized. Like, can he live up to that?
And I think he had like 29 or 41 or something NHL goals at that point. It was if you had watched him the season before, he was like so far and away the best player on a bad team, and it was in there. So anyway, Alexander Semin. He man, I just kind of, this might go back to the soccer thing, but I just kind of naturally gravitate towards like I loved watching Nicholas Backstrom. Like, I mean, I appreciate like Alex Ovechkin's greatness. He was amazing, and like kind of what Nate's doing now. Like, it's like just to see what he's doing is remarkable. But like the way Nicholas Backstrom played hockey was just like, I just was fascinated by that. And so Alexander Semin was kind of like a combination of Ovechkin and Backstrom. Like, he had the playmaking ability that Backstrom had, but he also had just like power in his legs that he could skate kind of like the other Alex. Yeah. And he just, he was so creative. I would like where he would be on the power play. I would go to their practices, and we were like basically, instead of sitting up in that room like we do, we would just stand by the glass. Yeah. And so, like when they would do their power play stuff, I would I would just find myself like, I would kind of like stand right behind him, or like right in the. He'd be like, I'm here. Sasha's here. Oh, sorry, Alexander Semin is here, and then there's the goal, and like I would just kind of like try to watch what he's watching, just to see. But because the other part of possibly what made him so fascinating was that he almost never he did like no interviews in English. Like I had one long sit down with him at a sushi restaurant where I brought an interpreter with me.
Nice.
And even that, like the interpreter was like, yeah, he doesn't have a whole lot to say in Russian either. But yeah, he would just just trying to figure. And then the thing with him was, like even like Ovechkin and Backstrom would say this, like it was just almost like an annual thing for 3 or 4 years where he would have like a 10-game stretch where he was the best hockey player in the world.
Yeah.
Like he was better than Ovechkin and Crosby for like a 10, 12, 13 game stretch. And part of it was that he had just, like a Joe Sakic level wrist shot. Like just, it was absurd. His release was even like, I remember Olaf Kolzig was like the old kind of grizzled goaltender on those teams. And he'd just be like, I don't know how he does that. And the other thing was that he could skate like Ovechkin. He could pass like Backstrom. When he wanted to be, he was like the best defensive forward on the team too. He had the entire package. He had it for about 12 or 13 games a year. And the rest of the time he was still a great player.
Yeah, very good.
He had like, I think he had a 38 goal season. He might have had a 41 or something. He had 2 or 3.
Yeah,
then he had one year where he was probably maybe his best like year on a game-to-game basis. I think he had like a big injury and didn't get to play as much that year. But he also like, those guys, being around those guys when they were still trying to learn how to win.
Yeah.
And like they kept losing in the playoffs. And like I was just talking about this with somebody about how there are certain years where there are teams that think they can win or probably could have won, but just something, there was one year where Alexander Semin was getting his thumb frozen before every game because he broke his thumb, but he wanted to keep playing, and so he was getting his thumb frozen before the game.
Oh my goodness!
And played, and then he didn't have a good series, and so he got crushed.
Yeah.
For not having a good series. I mean, he was, he was
playing with
doing what he could, right?
Yeah.
And so that, I mean, Backstrom had a wrist injury one year. Semin had the thumb thing. I think that was against Montreal. But yeah. So.
I remember because, like I said, you and I have talked about Alexander Semin a couple of times, and what's so fascinating about a player like him, because like you said, you've gotten to be around a lot of, big name players, big name rivalries, but every now and then you just like Nathan McKinnon's he's an interesting guy in terms of. I'd love to know what's going on inside of his head. Cale Makar, nice guy, got stuff to say, but, just kind of goes about his business, works hard. And then you find these guys, and I feel like, Kuznetsov, I feel like is another guy that's in that same boat where it's just like, you're so good when you want to be. Yet you seem not annoyed by being here, but like, Nathan McKinnon, it seems like all he wants to do is be at the rink. And then you come across guys like Alexander Semin that's just like, I'm really good at this. I think about that with Jokic sometimes. That guy seems annoyed by how good he is at basketball at times. Like, God, I got to come back here and just run all these guys out of the building. And those are the guys that I find the most interesting at the pro level.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Well, there was everything that just happened with getting Kuznetsov, like with going in the program, player assistance program, and then coming out, and then kind of getting this redemption tour with Carolina. And it was, I have friends back in D.C., and let me tell you, like, it might be like a great story in Carolina that everything is happening, but people in D.C. are like, it was like several years of this guy not being what they needed him to be, and not, and like showing you flashes of that, and like he gave this interview where I think it was basically like either right after they won the cup in 2018 or like the following fall, where it was like someone asked him about whether or not he thinks he could be MVP someday, and he said he like admitted like I don't think I'm ever gonna be able to work that hard to be the MVP. Like he knew that he had the ability to, but he just didn't. Like imagine. I mean, to me the most fascinating thing with him would be like drop him in the room with Nate. Right. That's going one of two ways. Like he's either finishing next season with 97 points.
Yeah.
Or he's on another team by Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and that's
it's so true, man. And I mean, Jared even told us this will come out next week. So Jared told us last week, it can be off-putting, that intensity. And I think you're right. And I almost wonder if we saw a little bit of that with a couple other guys earlier this year who just.
Yeah. You know what? And the thing that has stuck with me all year, like the first time I went over to Nate in the locker room at the practice facility, and it was like just me and him. I was asking him about. I had asked there were 5 new guys in the locker room, right? And I'd asked all of them about, what's it like? What's it like? What's it like here? Like, what's different here about the other? And, I knew Miles Wood from New Jersey and Jonathan Drouin coming from Montreal. Like, they were, it was, for them, it was like the first day. They were like, okay, this is different. And very much a lot of that stems from, it's Nate and it's Kale and it's Gabe and it's Devon too.
Yeah.
Like all those. I mean, we've seen Devon doesn't put up with shit,
No.
right? It's all of them together, but it's also Nate.
Yeah.
So I went over to him and, he was like, he can be, what is it, like gruff with the media or just not prickly. He doesn't want to talk, but he's also like very honest.
Oh, totally.
Like, and I think that's his like best quality when he's dealing with the media. Like, he scores his 50th goal and he says, you know what, I never thought I was going to score 50.
Yeah.
And people took that as like, what, is he crazy? Like, no, I think before this season he never thought he was going to score 50 goals.
No, and
he probably thought that last week, but not. So anyway, so I go over to him and I say, I'm asking about the culture and and he's like, he just said, some people don't fit here, and I'm like, his buddy in Pittsburgh would never say that.
Yeah,
like his brother, Sidney Crosby would never say, well, some people just don't fit here.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's, and I think you see the organization kind of take that as like they didn't mess around. Like they took some low level risks on a bunch of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, I mean, if there is an NHL Comeback Player of the Year award, Jonathan Drouin's gonna win it.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to make one up, and he's gonna win it. And then there's 2 guys that aren't here anymore. Yeah. And so it's not for everyone, but
that's fascinating to hear him say that.
It's the environment. The environment is what it is, and like people are gonna sink or swim, and some people some people are swimming like they're in the Olympics.
Yeah.
A couple guys didn't.
Yeah. Some guys are having to fish out of the bottom. No, I do. I think Nathan MacKinnon, in that sense, is a really interesting guy. You got to watch his first NHL game against Sidney Crosby in their hometown of Cole Harbour. I was going to ask you, what's kind of your biggest pinch me moments for like that you've been there. We can talk about others, but I have to imagine that's those are the moments that like, who gets to do that?
Yeah, right. That totally. The biggest one for me was the Olympics. Like, So I was at NHL.com for basically 5 years, I think, almost 5 years, and so got to do every Stanley Cup final during that run. Got to do the entire 2014 run with the LA Kings, which was just crazy.
Nuts,
just 7 games to get to the final.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and but yeah, so that the thing that you mentioned, like that of all the just like random individual things you get to do, just this year with the Avalanche, like when we were in Alberta, I drove over to Brooks, Alberta, where Kale played.
Yeah.
And so like just that was like, I'm driving. It was a really weird thing. It was like I was driving through Kansas, but it was like completely foggy. And I was like, where am I going? Yeah, that kind of thing. But that was that will eventually be a really fun story that I got to do.
Yeah.
Got some goodbye. Going to Cole Harbour to do kind of like a big picture story on what is in the water in Cole Harbour. That these 2 number 1 picks came from this town. I mean, the town's like somewhere between like 25 and 30,000 people. They got a Walmart. They got 1 sports bar. They don't even like. There's a That's Hockey. The big stores. There's one of them in like the town over, and then there's like 2 towns over is Halifax. So that's kind of where it. Yeah. It's like a suburb of Halifax kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so like, getting to meet all the people, who like the kind of like the 2 main people who influenced Sid and Nate a lot when they were youth hockey players.
Yeah.
And then just like being at a sports bar with like the guy who helped Sid get to the NHL and the guy who helped Nate get to the NHL while they were playing against each other was like,
Yeah.
this is kind of a crazy experience.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, it's crazy that a town of that size, with all of that going on, has produced
two guys.
These two
well,
guys.
and then the other thing, I'm guessing that like the Sid Nate Cole Harbor thing is going to come up a lot this summer because the North Shore Athletic Club, I think is the name of the rink. I got to get that right.
Mm-hmm.
Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini grew up playing there.
Oh, okay.
Right, like in the same and like that. On one hand, you're like, well, yeah, it's Vancouver, or hey, it's Toronto. Like, there's a million kids playing hockey.
Right.
It's bound to happen. That's never happened. Like the number one pick in the NHL draft in back-to-back years is going to have, from like age 5 to 11 or whatever, played in the same rink.
Yeah.
In the north side of Vancouver. They were, they weren't on the same teams together, but like, open ice, whatever. Just like they were just always around each other, and they know each other really well. And that's never. I mean, you've never had like no. What I think Stamkos and Tavares played on the same
They
team.
did.
At
Yeah,
one
they
point,
played on. I think,
but like when they were
Marlboro's
older,
team.
like that. But just the idea that, and again, I mean, Vancouver's a huge city. Cole Harbor's a town of 30,000 people.
A town. Yeah. All right, winding down here, and I've got the tough ones for you now.
Okay.
Best NHL city to visit.
Got to do this again. Best NHL. I think I have them. I kind of like put them in tiers. It's hard to beat. It's hard to beat Vancouver and Montreal and Toronto. But that said, and also Chicago and Nashville, and I would say New York too. New York's a weird one for me because I ended up living there for like 10 years, so it's like kind of like going home, but not. And it's great to go there for games, as you know.
Yeah. I love going to MSG.
Yeah. But honestly, like, because of some of the trips we've taken recently, like, I mean, my favorite place that's like in the NHL footprint, I'm like kind of stretching things here a little bit, is the Rocky Mountains in Alberta, right? Like, basically, like, if you're in Calgary, like, I love Calgary. It's a great city. It's not as great of a city as Vancouver and Montreal and Toronto. Yeah. But
everything that's around it.
But you can be in Banff in an hour or a little over an hour or whatever. Yeah. It's like here. You just drive up in the mountains. So, yeah, that stretch of Canmore, Alberta, and Banff and Lake Louise and Jasper, I got to do all that in one day.
Nice.
While you were in Vancouver, on that road trip, and don't get me wrong, Vancouver is just a wonderful place. I would have loved to do that too, but I'm kind of, that's my favorite. That's my favorite place that's like connected. To the NHL.
Like you said, within the NHL circuit. And then my last one, and this was the one that was maybe the toughest for you last time on the NHL circuit. Best meal. But not best media meal, best like
best
restaurant that you get in an NHL city. Because my running joke with this is we've gone to like 5 different cities, and Corey's been like, "Oh, this is the best meal." We'll go to the next place. Like, I forgot about this place. It's actually this place.
Yeah, that's we've also already talked about this, but like, it looks like we're going to be spending some time in Winnipeg here in a couple weeks, and like I'm convinced that like by the end of that series, like the Colorado Avalanche press corps is going to be like, hey, Winnipeg, pretty good.
Not bad. Like,
is there good food up there? I'm going to convert everyone. Yeah, for Avalanche fans who are going, Stella's for breakfast. Ooh. It's like a 15-minute walk from the arena. You'll probably see Jesse and I there.
Yeah. I'll say
and Evan
walkers.
And Kyle and Arif and whoever else goes. But yeah, favorite NHL meal. I have 3, I think.
Perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
Because we went. Or no, did you come to the place in Nashville, or was that just me and Kyle?
It was just you and Kyle.
Yeah,
I was supposed to.
If anybody watches Chopped, Manit, the Indian woman who's on Chopped, she owns a place in Nashville. It's called Shawan Ale and Masala House, I think. It's right there, kind of in the Gulch, not too far from the arena.
Nice.
It's Indian and Southern fusion, so like chicken tandoori poutine, and like the nachos are like kind of made with like naan chips. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's one. The place that we were going to go to in Edmonton that we didn't go to.
Yep.
Is called Ridge Road. Like they they have like all these roads in Edmonton that are called like RGERD, so like Ridge Road, and it's like 84 Ridge Road. It's almost like 8 Mile, 9 Mile, 37 Mile in Detroit, that kind of thing. So there's a place off of one of them just outside the city in Edmonton that has like farm to table with Alberta beef, bison, elk, duck. It's just unbelievable. That's like the one. I try not to spend too much money on. Like I'm not. We talk to hockey players, and it's like, where do they go? Steakhouse. I don't go to steakhouse because it's expensive. Yeah. But that's like one where I'm like, I'll spend a little bit more. I'll do it. Yeah. And then the third one is in Vancouver, again, like kind of just outside the city. It's a not Native American, a First Nations restaurant. Yes, it's called. Dude,
I always start with, what is it? They're not Native Americans.
They're not really Native Canadian either. They go First Nations.
Yes. First Nations. Yeah.
It's we had the same issue last week. I should have looked it up. I'm pretty sure it's called Salmon and Bannock. And that was like so far it was like a once in a lifetime experience. I haven't been able to get back to it, but it was incredible. And as I also mentioned, like, I think of all the different types of, I love so many different types of food. Like, we don't have enough Native American food available to just the public in the United States, and even in Canada too. Like that place is really well known because it's a First Nations restaurant.
Right.
Run, people that work there are First Nations. The food is First, and so like, like we in Denver here we have, what is it? It's Bannock Street or Bannock Road. Yeah. And I'm like, what if we just had like an awesome Native American restaurant on Bannock Road? It'd be great.
And we talked about it because like my family, I grew up, we'd go back to New Mexico where we have a ton of family, and we'd go to the state fair, and there'd be an entire section that's all Native American. They do dancing and drums, and there's a big thing where people would sell jewelry, and then big thing where people would sell huge portion where they'd sell food, and the food's so good and it smells so good, and so I'm with you. I would be if we get to Vancouver at some point on this playoff stretch.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely
have to do that.
I mean, Vancouver's an amazing, like, I'm not a huge salmon person, but like that's like the salmon city in the NA, right? Like the two places I've been in the world that have like just the salmon is like, I got to get that. Is in Vancouver. There's a place on Granville Island. It's amazing. And then like my first like really cool trip that I ever did as a hockey writer was in 2011. I went to Finland.
I was going to ask if it was Finland.
Right. I went to Finland with the Ducks, like Teemu Selanne, Saku Koivu, that whole thing. And the salmon in Finland is because
we just did that one in 22.
Oh yeah,
and
same deal, right?
That was the salmon soup.
Salmon and reindeer.
Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah.
Corey, I appreciate you coming back down, man. I've now taken multiple hours of your time, but I really appreciate it. It's been great.
We just keep talking about food. We'll be here for another.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we'll have to do a full separate food only podcast right before the playoffs. Maybe that'll be a fun summer thing. We'll just come in and like every NHL city and the food.
Best places, best coffee, all that. Yeah.
See, you're already thinking about it. Corey Masisak, Denver Post. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, ton of interesting stories from Corey. I have to have him back. Every time I have a conversation with Corey, it spurs a thought for the next conversation that I'm going to have with Corey. So big thanks to him for coming down. And like I said, big thanks to Corey for showing me around all the different NHL cities this year. I would have eaten way worse food without you. So thank you. That's it for this week. Heading to Winnipeg this weekend. We will have a show for you guys next Wednesday. Really excited to just keep this going every week. Got another fun guest lined up. But guys, I'm having a blast doing this. We're into the best time of year. I will be in Winnipeg for playoff hockey, Avs and Jets round 1. Really looking forward to that. But we'll be back next week. Thank you guys so much. Hey, this is fun. We'll talk to you later.